From Wish TV, this is breaking news. Mass shooting at FedEx.
He did give me eye contact, which was very scary because when he went in the second time, he was shooting towards me.
Face to face with the man police say shot and killed 8 people inside an Indianapolis FedEx facility. In the late night chaos, loved ones left in the dark.
There are families that are waiting for the loved ones inside because they have no clue what's going on.
The suspect, a former employee, his motive unknown.
He got out of his car and pretty quickly started some random shooting.
Now the president is calling for action.
Every single day, there's a mass shooting in the United States. It's a national embarrassment and must come to an end.
City leaders are calling for unity.
In times of despair, I know that our residents will rally together and help one another make it through.
And survivors are calling for support.
That's all we need right now is a lot of prayers. Because FedEx, that's what we are. We're a family.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Brooke Martin.
And I'm Phil Sanchez. Thank you for joining us tonight. We begin right now with breaking news. We've learned the names of the 8 people killed last night in what's believed to be the deadliest mass shooting in Indianapolis history.
A 19-year-old man opening fire at his former workplace, the FedEx ground facility near Indianapolis International Airport. We have team coverage tonight, and we start with News 8's Sierra Hignite.
Yeah, the victims in this situation range in ages from 19 to 74 years old. It took police more than 17 hours to identify the victims and notify their families. Those killed in the mass shooting have been identified as a 32-year-old Matthew R. Alexander, 19-year-old Samaria Blackwell, 66-year-old Amarjeet Johal, 64-year-old Jaswinder Kaur, 68-year-old Jaswinder Singh, 48-year-old Amarjeet Sikhan, 19-year-old Carly Smith, 74-year-old John Weissert, and 4 of those victims were shot and killed outside of the building. The other 4 shot and killed inside. It's not clear where each victim was at the time of the shooting. 4 of the 8 people killed are members of the Sikh community. Amarjeet Johal is a grandmother. Her family says that she was killed while trying to come home from her shift at FedEx. Her grandchildren called her Nani Ji. She is one of multiple people in her family who worked at this specific facility. One of her grandchildren says that his uncle was at the facility during the shooting, hiding under a table from the gunman. The person next to him was hit with one of the bullets and fell to the floor. His uncle was able to escape. Leaders in the Sikh community say that this loss is devastating, not just to the families of the victims, but to the entire community.
Very unfortunate, very heartbreaking, very sad day for our community and for the whole nation as well. In our community, is a very tight-knit community. If something happens to anyone in our community, the whole community comes for support.
Families waited for hours today at the Holiday Inn across the street from the FedEx facility to find out if their loved ones survived. In addition to the 8 people that were killed, 5 others were shot and 2 others were injured and treated at the scene. It's unclear right now how many of those people are still being treated at the hospital, and we do not have an update on their injuries yet tonight. Police are asking, though, that anyone that was injured in this shooting to please come forward and call police. Witnesses who were there say that they will never forget this tragedy. Reporting, I'm Sierra Hignite, Wish TV, wishtv.com, and follow us on Facebook.
Thank you, Sarah. We mentioned one of the victims, 74-year-old John Weiser. News 8 spoke with his wife earlier today as she awaited word from police. She told us her husband, who goes by Steve, had been working as a bag handler at FedEx for 4 years.
First happened, and they called and said that, that it was, that it was a shooting. I just fear, it's just like I froze down my spine.
Carol Weisert says she and her husband were married for nearly 50 years.
The suspect, identified as 19-year-old Brandon Hall of Indianapolis. Investigators say that Hall shot himself inside the FedEx facility And now we've learned he had prior contact with the FBI. The head of the FBI office here in Indianapolis confirms to Wish TV that in March of last year, Hull's mother contacted law enforcement saying that her son might try what's known as suicide by cop. He was placed on immediate mental health detention. And officers seized a gun at the home. Investigators did not find evidence of racially motivated violent extremism and no evidence of a crime. The FBI tells us that they did not return the shotgun to Hull.
We continue our team coverage tonight with Dan Klein.
He spoke to neighbors on the Far East Side where we believe Brandon Hull lived. And we're getting our first look at Hull's picture as well, Dan.
Yeah, and the house is on the opposite side of the city from the location of the shooting, right off 10th Street on the Far East Side, just outside 465. However, let's start with showing you a good look at Brandon Hull. There he is. It comes from an IMPD Nixle alert about a year ago. More on that in just a second. But at this hour, we do not have confirmation from police that the blue house where officers focus their attention is indeed Brandon Hull's home. But police cars were a constant presence all day long. Neighbors tell me they first started seeing the flashing lights of police right before 6 a.m., less than 7 hours after the shooting. I saw police going in and out of the blue home at least twice this afternoon. One neighbor across the street who did not want to be interviewed told me he knew the Brandon that lived there. He called him a good kid and said his mom did the best she could. Now, back to the photo of Hull. We obtained the IMPD incident report that we believe is connected to the FBI statement you just heard read. The report is from March of last year and involves a Brandon Hull, who was 18 at the time, who was immediately detained because he had suicidal thoughts and bought a gun within the last 24 hours. As I talked to most neighbors up and down the block today, no one seemed to know Brandon or anyone else who lived at the blue house. Everyone, as you can imagine, just shocked.
And then you think to yourself, you know, I've been living a fairly decent life. I've never gone hungry. I've always had a car. I've always had a home. And then you realize there are so many people out there suffering that we just don't know anything about.
Oh, it's awful. You know, my brother works for UPS, so it kind of hit a little close to home.
That's mortifying. Why would somebody do that at that age? Like, it's truly confusing.
While some neighbors say this incident does not affect how they see their own neighborhood, others aren't so sure. Reporting in the studio, Dan Klein, Wish TV, wishtv.com, and be sure to follow us on Facebook.
All right, Dan, thank you very much. Well, Indianapolis Mayor Joe Hogsett is calling on the city to come together in the wake of the shooting. Hogsett says that we are now left with grief and must bear the scars and memories of this crime.
We must guard against resignation or even despair. The assumption that this is simply how it must be, and that we might as well get used to it.
Hogsett says the violence is a devastating blow to Indianapolis, and its impact will be felt for days and weeks to come. Now, FedEx says that it's deeply shocked and saddened following the shooting. CEO Frederick Smith gave this message to employees. First and foremost, he says, I want to express my deepest sympathies to the families, friends, and coworkers of those team members. Our priority right now is responding to the situation on the ground and helping our team members and law enforcement. We have a team on site in Indianapolis to provide support, and we are making counselors available. This is a devastating day, and words are hard to describe, and emotions we all feel. Please keep the Indianapolis team and surrounding community in your thoughts and prayers as we continue to support and care for each other in this difficult time and these difficult days ahead.
FedEx employees who survived the attack are still struggling to process this horrific shooting. News 8's Camila Fernandez spoke with some of those survivors today, including someone who saw the suspect firing his gun.
That's all we need right now. It's a lot of prayers, because FedEx, that's what we are. We're a family. And we need all the prayers we can, because this is something that we're not going to be able to get over.
Angel Warman hasn't been able to sleep since Thursday night when a gunman killed 8 people at a FedEx facility. She says she saw the gunman before he killed himself.
I walked all the way around to the sidewalk, and as I looked, I seen a man standing there with a long black gun like this, just shooting off like 10 to 15 rounds. And I ran back inside and I yelled and I told all my workers to get in the bathroom and to lock the door and to stay in there, and I held the door closed. because I didn't know where the shooter was.
Then she spotted one of the victims.
As I'm looking, I see an older gentleman walking, screaming, "Help me, I've been shot." I ran out there, I grabbed him, and I brought him inside the shack. And as I'm on the phone with 911, the other workers were in the bathroom trying to control the bleeding of the victim.
The nightmare continued.
There was a deceased body leaning right on my car, right on the front, on the passenger side. When they were loading us onto the bus, I passed my truck, and I seen the person leaning on my car. And I don't think I'll ever drive my car again.
Christina Morgan says she prayed to just go home and be with her babies.
He did give me eye contact, which was very scary because when he went in the second time, he was shooting towards me. But instead of getting my car, he got the car that was blocking me in. All I can hear was him shouting the whole time he was aiming his rifle. And like I can see his whole face, and I don't want to even visualize it, and it's hard to talk about, but you can tell that he had a lot of anger towards someone.
I'm Camila Fernandez for Wish TV, wishtv.com, and follow us on Facebook.
Warman says she's thankful for the police. She says they arrived at the FedEx site within minutes.
Governor Eric Holcomb, meanwhile, calls it another heartbreaking day. He says he's been shaken by the FedEx shooting. He says, in times like this, words like justice and sorrow fall short in response for those senselessly taken. Our thoughts are with the families, friends, coworkers, and all those affected by this terrible situation. Governor Eric Holcomb, meanwhile, ordering flags to be flown at half-staff. The order lasts until sunset on Tuesday. President Biden ordering flags at the White House to be flown at half-staff as we, quote, mark of respect for the victims, he says, of the FedEx shooting. That order is also in place until Tuesday.
President Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris calling on more to be done to combat gun violence in the United States. The president tweeting tonight, both he and Harris have been briefed on the shooting. He says, God bless the 8 individuals who lost their loved ones, and we pray for the wounded and their recovery. We can and must do more to reduce gun violence and save lives. Vice President Harris spoke earlier today.
Yet again, we have families in our country that are grieving the loss of their family members because of gun violence. There is no question that this violence must end, and we are thinking of the families that lost their loved ones.